Hi, my name is Jodie and I'm a garden designer and horticulturist for the Garden Design Company, and today I'm going to show you how to make your very own Christmas wreath. I'm using all natural materials today, which I have purchased from an online wholesaler. However, you can forage for your own material in your own garden or in your local area. The Woodland Trust does provide information on how to forage safely and not damage your local environment. What you're going to need is a 10 or 12 inch wire ring. These can be purchased online for relatively cheap. I have moss, which I'm going to use as my base. This is going to keep the foliage that goes on top moist, prevent it from drying out. Also makes it a little bit fuller. This is not essential. My base material for the wreath is going to be blue spruce. This is Christmas tree. Some blue conifer to complement the blue spruce, and then I have some what I like to call wispy bits just to make it a bit more loose. So this is Eucalyptus parviflora, which is quite sprig like, and then I have some dried flax as well. You will also need some wire. This is floristry wire, very fine grade, very flexible. This is what you're going to use to bind all the moss and all the material around the wreath. Wire clippers just to cut that, some secateurs in case I need to cut anything shorter, and that's all you need. So I'm going to begin by binding my wire ring with moss. I'm going to take small handfuls at a time. About this sort of size. Just fits in the palm of my hand. I'm going to lay it on my ring. Get my floristry wire, and I'm just going to wrap that around a couple to 3 times. With your beginning wind, just wrap it around in the same place 3 times. And then just go over once around the rest of the moss to tie it in. So that's the first bundle in. Now I'm just going to keep going around the entire ring until that's completely covered. Another palm size handful. Spread that out across my ring like that. And then I'm binding the wire around. This will hold quite firmly with just a few turns of the wire. I'm going to continue that, and then we'll get on to the foliage shortly. So now I've completed the moss all the way around the ring. It's just giving it a bit of depth. That's what makes the wreath sit a little bit more 3D, but that also depends on how many sprigs that you're going to put on as well. So next I'm going to show you how to do the sprigs. For a wreath this size, depending on how thick you want the wreath to look, you're going to need about 10 to 15 sprigs all the way around the outside, and they're very easy to do. Using my base material, which will be the spruce and the conifer, I'm going to first lay my conifer on top. It doesn't really matter which way you do this, because as you layer the different sprigs as you go around, it sort of builds new dimensions to it as well. So I'm going to take one bit of conifer for now, one bit of spruce. I'm going to layer another smaller bit of conifer on top. And I'm laying it in a fan shape. I want to create that sort of fan, so when I lay it on, it covers both sides of the ring. Then I'm going to take some wispy bits, which is my Eucalyptus parviflora, lay that on top. I don't really mind which direction this is going to lay in yet. I'm going to make my sprigs as I go along, but you can make them all at the start and bind this to begin with. so you have bundles that you can work with. I'm not going to do that because I want to be able to manipulate the spray as I go round. And then I'm just going to take a couple of little bits of this flax and I'm going to lay that on top like that. So that's going to be my first spray done. I still have my wire attached from when I was winding the moss around. This is going to be my starting point. So holding it in my hand, as I've not bound these, I'm going to lay my first sprig on, and I'm going to start by laying this one flat. So it is laying this way rather than one to the side or one to the other. Then all I'm going to do using my wire is just bind that a couple of times quite tightly, making sure I'm catching all the stems as I go round. So I'm just going to do that 3 times quite tight. And that's my first sprig secure. So I'm going to make a few more of those. I think this is going to need about 10. So I'm going to take another bit of spruce, another piece of conifer. You see, this is quite thin, so I'm probably going to use another little bit as well. Like that. All depends on how you want your wreath to look. I'm not going to put flax in this one. I kind of want my flax to be a little bit more sporadic looking rather than quite uniform. I like my wreaths to look a little bit wispy than I do dense. If you're wanting a more dense, tightly knit wreath, then just keep your bundles closer together. Shorter bundles closer together like this. Maybe like that. And then that would be your first bundle. You're going to need more bundles if you do it that way. But again, it all depends on the look that you're trying to achieve. As I'm going for wispy, I'm going for longer, much longer sprigs. Lay my parviflora on, and I'm going to do that like this time. And then I think I'm going to take another smaller bit of spruce just to lay on top. So my base material, which is the spruce and the conifer, are great base materials because they're chunky. I usually per bundle have about 3 to 4 of those sprigs, and then a collection of smaller sprigs of the eucalyptus, which is the wispy bits, as I go around. So next I'm going to lay this over the top of my first join. About halfway between this bundle, I'm going to lay it over the top so I can still see some of this that's going on, but then I'm also begin to layering it. So if you find halfway covers too much, you can always bring it down, but as long as that initial seam is covered. So I'm going to lay mine like that. This time I'm going to lay it more towards facing outwards, and then my next bundle I'll face towards inwards. That's my first one. Just move the wire along, bind it about 3 times, manipulate it a little bit with my hands. You can finesse it more at the end, but you can see it's starting to build up quite nicely. So I'll build my next bundle now, which will include the flax as well, and you'll see that how that looks a little bit more organic than having the flax in every single spray. What I didn't mention at the start is when my material arrived, it came in long branches, and I cut it down into 20-inch lengths, or 20 centimeters lengths, or 8-inch lengths, depending if you're imperial or metric. that just gave me nice bundle sizes to work with. So for my last bundle, I made sure the edge of the stems was just under my first bundle, and the top of the stems was covering the adjoin of the bundle in front. And then to finish it off, to tie it off, cut yourself a good length from the wire reel. And then what I'll do is I will wrap it round. Still got a little loop here in my fingers, which you might not be able to see. Just got a little loop there in my fingers, and then with the remaining wire I'm going to thread it through and pull it tight to knot the wire, and that will be secure enough. Make sure you trim off the excess so you don't scratch your front door. Give it a little fluff to make sure proportionally it's all covered and you're happy with it. And then that's my wreath done from the foliage point of view. So if you want to add some pine cones to it, all you need to do for this, perhaps with some thicker wire, I will show you. Cut yourself a little length of thicker wire. Then I'm going to wrap this around the base of my pine cone, making sure I have enough left over to be able to twist it. So my pine cone is on a little wire stalk. Then all I'm going to do is thread this wire stalk through my wreath until I hit the back. Like that. And pull it through the back. And then with the wire I'm just going to wrap it around the wreath ring itself to secure it. Make sure that there's no sharp bits of wire so you don't scratch your door. That's it, simply and easily attached. Then I just like to position the foliage around it just so it looks like it's nestled. And we'll do that 2 more times. Cut myself a bit longer wire this time, as I left myself a little bit short last time. Wrap it around the base of the pine cone, just getting into all those little cones itself. Twist it a good few times. I've got quite long bits of wire left in here, so I'm just going to leave myself 2 little legs this time. Thread this through. Comes out the back. Another way of attaching it is when it's through the back, twist it again to secure it. And then with these ends I'll just turn them back into the moss so they're not spiking out. My 3rd and final cone, and that's it. That's my wreath complete. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you find it easy. It's a lot easier than a lot of people think. Great way to put these on the doors without damaging your doors is getting those little wreath hooks. They will just sit nicely over your door.